Full disclosure, we invited you here, but of course it is unusual for someone who's accused of murder to do this interview or others. Why do you want to speak to the people of Massachusetts and beyond?
I have nothing to hide. My life is in the balance, and it shouldn't be. And I believe sunlight is the best disinfectant, and that's been our team motto since inception. I think the more I've seen, the more information the public has, the more they understand what we already know.
And when we talk about the public, there's so much going on in the atmosphere of this case. How much of that do you pay attention to?
I pay attention a little bit to everything. The parts of the public that seem a little dirtier than others, I have close friends and people I trust that filter through it, because there are threads of important information in every channel of the public, on social media, just out and about in Norfolk County or in Suffolk, through our emails. So what I can't manage or don't want to manage, we have a lot of it covered from people that we trust and people who support us.
People said some pretty nasty things about you online. Do you read that? Do you process that?
I read some of it. I don't take it to heart, but it's bothersome. But I understand why it is. There are bad, evil, nefarious players in this. There are people who are adverse to other people in this whole case, people who support me. And I've known my whole life, as does everyone, that there's not a lot of good in some people, and it doesn't drag me down in any way. It makes me feel like we're covering ground here. The nastier it gets, the more I know that we're making an impact to people that have a lot to worry about. 3
years have now passed since John's death. How much do you think about him with everything else that is going on?
I think about him in terms of his final days, his final weeks. I mean, we have his cell phone, which a cell phone to anyone is like a diary, and it tracks everything you've done. And I've gone over and over his final movements, his heart rate, his injuries, the time that he did everything that day and the days leading up to it. But I've said this to other people. The time that I spent with John, 2 years, it's now been 3 since he's gone, since he was killed. And I'm a year beyond. I've eclipsed the time that I spent with him. And I have very mixed feelings, when I look back on John, because I see a lot of poor decisions that were all precursors to his death and to this nightmare that I'm living. It's
poor decisions by whom?
By both of us. Just drinking, being around the wrong people is chief among them. Wrong people for the weeks leading up. They wouldn't have been people I would have chosen on my own to be around.
Have you been able to start a new social life, a new dating life since this?
No, I have my friends that were always in my life. I'm closer to them than ever, and it's been kind of a bittersweet silver lining is I don't know that I ever would have known my friends and family had this in them to be there for me in this way. So I feel very fortunate. And I've met so many new people, and that's enough of a life for me right now is, we go out for dinner just to get out, and we end up just kind of hungered down over a table discussing the case. And I value their input, and I'm content with my social life, even though it's really just socializing about the case.
How big is Karen Reed's inner circle?
My inner circle, half of it's my attorneys, who we just talk so much. There's always so much ground to cover, and we can't wait until trial starts to really begin strategizing or going through the details. We do a little bit every day.
Do a lot every day.
We do I should say we do a little bit in proportion to the total task at hand, but we cover a lot of hours every day. I probably talk to Alan and Liza each 3 or 4 times a day. And I think it makes us all feel good that we're going to be that much more prepared when we have to do this for round 2. But my inner circle, I don't know. It's bigger than it was. It's bigger than it was before, but it feels stronger than it ever was. I know that I can trust the people that I always chose to have, that I chose to have in my life.
Is that 5, 10?
10 maybe.
Okay.
Really, really tight, it's probably 5.
Alan, have you ever had a client who's advocated for themselves as much as Karen does?
Not as articulately or as intelligently as Karen does. Karen is an innocent woman falsely accused. She could sit back and say, go handle this. You're the professionals, go deal with it. That is not in her personality. And we're a better team for it. She has an encyclopedic knowledge of literally every single page of the discovery. I've never seen anything like it. She has an analyst's brain. She's got a rapier intelligence that is attendant to this type of analysis. Very, very smart, very motivated. She has no off button. I'm getting texts. I wake up, I'm on the West Coast. So I wake up, she's been awake for 3 hours. And nearly every day, I feel like, damn it, I've fallen back again. I've fallen behind again. Liza and I have to sort of get back on the treadmill and catch up with where Karen is today, because she'll literally just pick something out of the blue. To me, it's out of the blue. To her brain, it makes sense for her to pull this document or pull this report and say, well, have we thought about this paragraph or this sentence or this word in this report here or there? And then we gather together as a team, me and David and Liza and Karen will get on the phone and talk it through. So she's been, more than any other client I've ever seen, any other client I've ever met, she's been at the center of her own defense. She knows she didn't do this. She's motivated to make sure that the truth comes out.
Has she made any seminal decisions in this case? Have we seen any filings that are directly from her decision and her thought process of how things should play out?
The better question is, have we seen any filings that she didn't have a seminal investment in, a decision about, a suggestion about? Every single thing that you've ever seen filed in this case has gone through Karen, at least some of them are hyper legal, right? But she's educated herself on, she'd make a better lawyer than most lawyers these days. But she will have an impact, and she's got a seat at the table in terms of strategy and tactics that we use every single day.
There are so many people who have never met you but are so invested in your life and the outcome of this case. I know there are some who adamantly support you, but do you ever worry about your safety with the people who do not want to see you succeed in this case?
I did more earlier on. I feel more insulated now. I feel safer that people know. Because if anything ever happened to me or someone that I love, I think a lot of people would know where to look. So that makes me feel safer.
Have you received any credible threats?
Yep, I have. There's been some online that just the fact that someone's brazen enough to even post something like that gives you some insight into their stability or lack thereof.
People showing up at your house, calling your private cell phone?
No, that has not. I've really not had my physical boundaries impinged in any way, nor have my parents. I think by and large, very large, there are very friendly people all around me.
Your defense strategy is the most aggressive I've ever seen in a case. You've taken on the DA, you've taken on the judge. How much of that is Karen Reed? How much is that the team?
Probably equal parts. The defense strategy comes down to probably 3 or 4 words: get the truth out. That's the defense strategy. It may be more aggressive than you're used to. The conduct in this case is more dire than I'm used to. I've seen a lot of cases. I've been doing this for 30 years. I don't think I've ever seen a case with as many questions, as many suspect actions, and as much suspect conduct as I've seen in this case. There is unequivocally corruption in this case. There are absolutely cover-ups in this case. There's conduct by law enforcement and the DA's office, that the likes of which I've never seen. And my job, our job as a team, is to get that truth out. I'm not going to sit idly by. Our team is never going to sit idly by and let an innocent woman be convicted based on false evidence, false pretenses, cover-ups, agreements and decisions on the other side to hamstring the defense, hamstring our ability to get the truth out. I'm not going to sit idly by to do that. So is it aggressive? Sure, it's aggressive. But a woman's life is in the balance. So yeah, we're going to stay aggressive. We've been aggressive. We're going to stay aggressive until the truth comes out.
I think it was 4 words at the end of the last trial, and it was, "I'm going to declare a mistrial." What was that like for you to take in?
It was the outcome that I had thought about the least. I had thought about the best case scenario, and I always think about the worst because that's how I'm able to process. I have to think it through. How will I deal with this? Who will fight for me if I'm not sitting here to fight for myself? And of course I thought about an acquittal because I know I deserve it. I had not really thought about a mistrial. It was only a couple days. It was like day 2, the end of day 2 into the deliberations, that both David and Alan told me separately when we were in the church next door that this could be a mistrial. And the prospect of that at that time during jury deliberations was a gut punch. But then when it was declared, it was such a relief that I was free. I was free to sleep in my own bed, hug my parents, continue to work on this case. My immediate next worry was, I hope I have my team available to go to battle all over again. But those moments, waiting to hear 12 strangers determine what is going to physically happen to you for the foreseeable future or forever, when you're able to walk out a free woman or man, it was an incredible relief. You just see your life it can just be taken away from you.
As we head to the second trial, one of the possible outcomes here could be a conviction. That could be prison time. How much have you thought about that?
I think about it every day, about prison time, and it doesn't frighten me the way it did 3 years ago. I was arrested 3 years ago tomorrow, and I've been in jail twice as a result of this prosecution. I've now accepted the fact that what's happening to me and the awareness this case has raised and the eyes it's opened, that is what my purpose is in Massachusetts and whatever effect this has in other parts of the country. And even if a jury got it wrong or there's even more nefarious behavior on behalf of this prosecution, then just even more awareness will be raised. So I can accept whatever happens. Nothing will ever get the best of me or break me down.
There have been sort of these unsubstantiated claims in the atmosphere that there might have been some funny business with the jurors who were dismissed.
Right.
Is this a real concern that you have? Is this something that you are looking at, or have you just dismissed it as rumor?
I'll never just dismiss that as rumor. Something like that is, it's too convenient for the prosecution for us to just dismiss out of hand. Do I have any evidence, specific evidence, that there was jury tampering? I don't have any specific evidence of it. Do I think that there are questions that should be asked? Do I think that there are questions that have been raised about the way the jurors were dismissed and who was dismissed very specifically? There were jurors who very, very clearly throughout, it's impossible to sit 8 feet away from 12 or 15 folks and not get an idea, just a chemistry idea of where those jurors are one way or the other based on certain body language and facial expressions, et cetera, sighs and huffs and arm folds and leaning forward, leaning back, things of that nature based on certain witnesses. It's interesting that 3 of probably the most stalwart jurors who we believed, and I will go to my grave believing, were very supportive of the defense, ended up cast aside within minutes, not days or hours, within minutes of the jurors deliberating. Within minutes of me standing up and giving my final summation, those 3 jurors were gone. So is that a query? Absolutely. Have I dismissed it? I'll never dismiss it. Is there anything to do about it? Not so sure.
One of the state troopers who was involved with the Norfolk DA's office and on the periphery of the investigation was also responsible for the jury?
Right. He wasn't that far on the periphery of the investigation. He was involved in the investigation. He was a direct supervisor over the individuals that were testifying and about whom we had leveled some very, very serious claims and ended up proving those claims during the course of direct and cross-examination, the presentation of our case. That person, that supervisor, we found out well into the trial. As a matter of fact, at the end of the trial, we found out is the very person who was governing the jurors. That's a question that should be raised. That is an issue that should be teased out. Should never, ever happen. That is the very definition of a conflict of interest.
Is that standard in Massachusetts for just the DA's office to assign whoever they want to go be the sort of,
supervisor
of the jury? Yeah.
Yeah. Is it standard in Massachusetts? I hope not. I've never seen that in my life. But if I had a nickel for every time I said I've never seen this in my life as it pertains to the Massachusetts justice system, the criminal justice system, I'd have a lot of nickels. I've never seen that happen. It should never have happened. It's abhorrent to the system of justice in which we work. Those kinds of conflicts of interest, they just can't stand. But they did. And we weren't even told about it. I mean, that was one of the most galling parts of that revelation is that, wait, this has been happening under our nose the entire trial, and I'm just now finding out about it? We would have made hay about it as soon as we found out, and we did. But it was 10 minutes before I was about to stand up and close the case.
Some of the things that Michael Proctor said about you were objectively vicious. What was it like to be there in court and listen to all those texts?
Another relief. So many moments in court were a relief to me because I've known these things in some cases for years and had to keep it amongst our inner circle. Nothing Michael Proctor texted and admitted out loud in court about me would ever offend me. I'm proud of my overcoming of health crises. Proctor was just letting the public know what I've known about Michael Proctor, who he really is. And it's just luck that, as I know it, Michael Proctor doesn't have a daughter. But those text messages, as vile as they are, I think are the least of his offenses.
Alan, you could have had Michael Proctor read 1 or 2 of the text. You spent hours having him read those out loud. I'm sure that was done by design. It was.
Everything that we did in that cross-examination of Michael Proctor was done by design. I wanted to make sure that I had an audience of 12 folks, an undefined 12 folks sitting in that jury box who were going to make a judgment about, not just about Karen Reed, they were going to make a judgment about the prosecution and about the investigating officer in charge of the prosecution or in charge of the investigation. They needed to see and hear a full panoply of who this person really is and get down to the fabric of the human being. That's the only way they could assess the veracity of the entire investigation. As goes the investigating officer, goes the investigation. And the prosecution, the Commonwealth, wanted to hide that. They wanted to mask it. They didn't want to give those data over to us. They didn't want to give those texts to us. They tried mightily in front of the court to get those suppressed. Why? Because as goes the investigator, goes the prosecution. The texts were vile. They were disgusting. They were not just, as Michael Proctor tried to slough them off, regrettable. Regrettable, Mr. Proctor? Seriously? That's the best you can come up with in terms of what the things that you're saying and the bias that you're showing about a criminal defendant and accused who has yet to be convicted of anything? That's the best you can say, is it's regrettable? It's far beyond regrettable. It's disgusting. It's disturbing. That man should not ever carry a badge. That man should not ever carry a gun. He should never have any authority over the community members ever again.
Are you surprised that he's been fighting for his job?
Yeah. What I think he should probably do is put his tail between his legs and get out of the jurisdiction and go find some other line of work, someplace where he can't hurt people.
How will Michael Proctor play in the retrial?
Oh, he's going to play large in the retrial. They can't. Look, the prosecution, I think, probably wants very badly to take some magic eraser, some pixie dust, and erase Michael Proctor from the minds of the public, and certainly not from the minds of the new jury who's going to come in and assess this case. They're not going to be able to do it, not as long as we're breathing. Michael Proctor is going to be a part of this case, whether he likes it or not.
Because they don't necessarily have to call him, but obviously you have a right to call him as a witness.
Correct, and we will. If they don't call him, we will. We're not going to allow the Commonwealth to hide the truth from the last jury or this upcoming jury.
He's touched everything, everything.
There's no part of the case that he hasn't affected. No part of the case that he hasn't affected. He was in charge of the entire investigation. The personality and the character of the investigation is the personality and the character of Michael Proctor. They are one and the same. And we'll make sure that that's disclosed to the jury.
The feds devoted a lot of time and resources investigating what happened here. We are now years removed from that, and there's been no action taken. Why is that?
Well, I don't know that there's been no action taken. We don't know about any action taken. There's lots of, it's like
But no indictments.
No indictments, but it's like looking at a duck on water, Ted. The duck is very still, it's very stable, but underneath the little flippers are going crazy. I don't know what's happening just beneath the surface. I don't know what's happening. I'm not privy to what the federal investigation is actually, where it's going or how far it's led to this point. I do know that they were seminal in providing us with information. And when I say us, it's important to note, providing both sides. They didn't pick a side or choose a side in this. They provided everything that they decided was disclosable. They provided to both sides. The Commonwealth decided they didn't want to use it. As a matter of fact, tried mightily to keep us from using it. Thank goodness cooler heads prevailed, and we were able to utilize much of what their investigation or what their disclosure consisted of. But if it hadn't been for them, the Commonwealth had been hiding evidence from us for years. And it wasn't until the federal investigation and revelation came to pass that we actually sort of were able to look behind the curtain, which is where we should have been looking in the first place. So it was central to our presentation of our defense.
Leah Foley will be the third U.S. attorney, as far as we know, who will at least touch this case.
Right.
Do you expect that having a new head of the U.S. Attorney's Office in Boston will change anything?
I don't know. I have been incredibly impressed with the U.S. Attorney's Office in terms of the leadership under Ms. Foley's predecessors. Joshua Levy was central in making certain decisions about what to disclose to us, where the investigation was going. Again, I don't know what the full parameters of the investigation are, but I can say that I was very, very happy with what they did and what they disclosed, trying to get the truth out previously, and I hope Ms. Foley does the same thing. I'm looking forward to her continuing the investigation. I hope she does.
When you look at the scope of the federal investigation and all the things that were done, you received 3,000 pages from that investigation. Are there other things that might have been done or have been done that you think that should also be turned over or could be turned over?
I don't know. Again, Ted, we're sort of operating a little bit in the blind because I don't know what the full contours of the federal investigation consist of. So it's not like I can say, oh, well, they did this, but I don't have that information. I don't know what the this is. The only thing that I have is the information that they provided to both sides. And then we culled through it to decide, oh, okay, is this relevant to our case? And nearly every page of it was highly, highly relevant material.
One of the things that the federal government did was hire this outside accident reconstruction team who would have no vested interest in the outcome of this case. Right. How important was those two accident reconstructionists coming in saying no way, no how?
I cannot describe the gravity of those two witnesses. First of all, they were unassailable in terms of their credibility and their credentials. There was nobody who testified that was more credentialed to talk about the issues that were attendant to them than those two gentlemen, those two doctors, PhDs. The fact that we didn't hire them, they can't be considered hired guns by the prosecution. The fact that the Commonwealth didn't even know their name. They were completely independent third parties who did not know Karen Read or this case, and they did not know that their assessment was attendant to Karen Read or this case. Central to their testimony, completely credible. I can't describe the gravity of those two witnesses and the impact that it had on the trial and getting to the truth. And what they said echoed everything that we had been learning during the course of our investigation on the defense side, which is that car was not damaged by hitting a human body. It did not hit a person. And John O'Keefe was not injured by being hit by a vehicle. No way, no how. It didn't happen. As one of the witnesses testified, the physics don't lie. The science doesn't lie. The car did not make contact with John O'Keefe. She didn't do this.
Karen, when the ARCA information came in that document dump, I guess, what was your emotion kind of reading what they decided?
I didn't really know the details of it until trial because I did not have the same access to those materials that the attorneys did because of the federal protective order. It was another moment, and there's been so many, that I realized, to put it mildly, how underhanded this prosecution is, that a district attorney can be privy to that accident reconstruction report and continue to pursue this case and not call Drs. Wolf and Rentschler.
Right, they have one job to do. They have one job to do, to seek the truth. They had this information in front of them. As Karen just said, why wouldn't they call them? They should have called them. Their only job is to seek the truth, not to seek a conviction. And the truth is, the physics don't lie. The car didn't hit John. He wasn't killed by being hit by a car. And they, not only did they not seek that truth, they tried to suppress it.
And their version of events was almost, it was laughable. It was laughable. It was illogical. It just did. The body just landed. The phone just landed. A side swipe with no bruises. It's not as if they had qualified, credentialed, advanced educated experts to offer another version of events. They didn't have that, and they chose to ignore that, and they chose to present to the court and to the public in a hearing that those federal materials, 3,000 pages, were 90 to 95% consistent with their theory of the case. The theory of the case is a car accident. The federal materials included a report that said there wasn't a car accident. That's the case. That's 95% of the case. And it was inconsistent. It wasn't just inconsistent. It was diametrically opposed to the Commonwealth's theory of the case, or lie of the case.
On the morning of January 29th, 2022, you said it was possible you might have hit John. How could that even be in the realm if you saw him going into the house?
Because it never crossed my mind that the people we were with, middle-aged adults with children, some of the children were with us that night at the bar. It did not cross my mind for several days that they did this to John, that John was treated like a piece of garbage. These were women and men, some I knew better than others, that I knew to be normal people. And I went through every possibility. He was near the road and he was dying. And I didn't think he was purposely in that place.
In your opinion, there have been a few names that have surfaced in this third-party culpability theory. Who do you think, if John was beaten up and attacked in that house, who did it?
We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know. And it's not for us to know. Somebody other than Karen is responsible for that, for the killing of John. But who it was specifically, others know, and they're not talking.
What is the most important piece of evidence that exists in this case that people could look at and say, hey, there's no way that she could have done this? Is there one thing?
To me, there is. That the only physical evidence connecting me to where John's body was found, which I will not call the crime scene, the only physical evidence, pieces of plastic taillight, were not found until after the state police had possession of that very taillight.
And when you couple that, you're looking for one thing. When you couple that with the testimony of the experts, the third-party, absolutely qualified experts, that there was no car accident. The car did not hit John, and John was not hit by a car.
So the taillight pieces, when they were found and when your car was taken, to you that is the most crucial element of your defense.
It's closely followed by other evidence, but to me, yes.
You've had a private investigator from the start. Is that private investigator still running down tips, and will we see any new revelations at the retrial?
Absolutely. Yeah, we have not slowed down our investigation one iota. So I expect, I'm not at liberty to say exactly what might be revealed that's new and different in the second trial, but I expect that there will be some new information that comes from our investigation as well.
People send you tips?
All the time. All the time. Yeah, the harder part is not getting the tips. The harder part is separating the wheat from the chaff. What tips are valuable enough to sort of chase down, and which just seem like we'd be chasing our tail. But no, we get tips every single day. The public is very, very interested in getting to the truth of what actually happened to John O'Keefe. Karen,
it's been reported that your defense is running about $5 million. Is that correct? And how do you pay for that?
Give or take a few million. That's a back of the envelope calculation, and it's certainly no pressure put on me in any way by my attorneys. The longer this goes, the harder they work, the more time goes into it.
How do you pay for that?
Right now, I'm paying for everything entirely on the charity of supporters. People I know, former colleagues, people, many, thousands of people I don't know. I've liquidated my retirement. I've sold my home, and everything else is from supporters, and it's not a small number. It's approaching $750,000, and I hope the supporters and the donors know that this is their defense. They're marshaling this. I could early, but it's been 3 years. I've not had income. I had 2 incomes, now I have none. So I'm just incredibly grateful and appreciative. And it was funny when we launched the defense fund, which Alan helped me do logistically through his firm. I was thanking donors the early days, anything sizable or even small ones, because it's not the nominal amount. It's what people can afford or their intention, and especially from strangers. And I was thanking people, and now I can't, but I just want them to know. I see them all. My family members, my close friends see them, and other supporters see. Our defense fund page has kind of become its own social media, that people look to see what other parts of this country are people closely following and donating to this defense. So it's keeping us going financially, of course, but also emotionally.
It's important to know, not to interrupt, Ted, but it's important to know that although the attorney time involved is in the multi-million-dollar range, probably $6 million between Mr. Yannetti, myself, Ms. Little, other lawyers who have worked on the case, other individuals, investigators, et cetera. Most of us, all of the lawyers, are not getting paid that. We have not taken that money. We're not going to take that money. That's the value that has amassed of the legal services that's been required to mount this defense, but we're not taking the money because she doesn't have the money. And the reason that David Yannetti is doing this, the reason that I'm doing this, the reason that Liza Little is doing this, the reason that Marty Weinberg and Bob Alessi and others are doing this is because it's the right thing to do. None of us are willing to stand by and watch her get railroaded or steamrolled by the power of the government when she did not do this. So we have all decided as a team, we will be here for as long as it takes, and we will fight as hard as it takes to make sure that the truth comes out.
You said you received $750,000 roughly in donations. Who would we be most surprised to hear who's donated to you?
I wouldn't disclose that to you, but some well-known, maybe one of the most well-known names at my former employer. But as I said, that means just as much to me as someone from Alabama who's given me $25 from her last paycheck.
Does that person's name start with an A?
No, he was, it's a he. And just a little more directly involved in it.
That's just good reporting. He's just going to keep asking until,
Yeah.
until he figures it out.
Abby certainly has the money.
I wish, Ted, I wish. And that's not for lack of trying on my part.
The largest group of people who've donated to you are your former coworkers.
Not in volume of donors, but in proportion of the actual amount donated. Yeah, about half has come from former colleagues to whom I am incredibly grateful. And it's kind of taken the sting out of no longer being a part of that world and seeing them every day and doing what I love to do, that I'm still connected, and it's a different life that I have now and a different purpose, and they're contributing to it.
And it's interesting, the perception that she's got this multi-million-dollar defense and this juggernaut defense. It's just not correct. It's not accurate. Yes, she has a very valuable defense working on her behalf, but the money that the donors and the public are providing, the money that that's being given to the defense fund is paying for the investigators, the expert witnesses, travel for the experts, hotels for the people are flying in from all over the country, and we have to account for that. A massive amount of logistics, getting people here so that they can testify, getting people here so that they can do the research. If we need to use research attorneys or other staff, that's what that's paying for. It's not paying for legal fees. None of us are taking legal fees.
For the retrial, you're facing a new special prosecutor. Who would you rather face? Is it Adam Lally, who we saw in the first trial, or is it Hank Brennan?
I don't care who I face. I have the truth. I have the best attorneys that money is not paying for. Do your worst.
What was your take on how the DA's office performed at the first trial?
How they performed? It felt like they just wore the jury down. It felt like a lot of repetition. I don't think the jurors saw the lack of injuries to John's body or his right arm for, I want to say it was week 5, but maybe it just felt like week 5 and it was week 3. They were clearly, and I understand why, belaboring insignificant points and barely touching on the biggest parts of the evidence.
Questions that they couldn't answer. They just decided the prosecution had a design. They were just going to try the case by volume instead of by validity.
Put it all out there.
Put everything out there, and the inconvenient facts that show that John O'Keefe was not killed by Karen Reed would just get buried somewhere in the middle. Our job was to tease that out, which we did. Doesn't matter if they try to do it again, we'll do the same thing. Our job is to make sure that the truth gets out there.
I think I asked your parents the same question. If you're framed, someone's got to run that, direct that. Who is that person?
I think you know who that person is. I think there's people who are enabling, and there's people who are actually moving pieces.
But is your theory that it's people inside that house, 34 Fairview, who sort of called the shots from the beginning, or someone high up in law enforcement?
I don't know the interconnections, the interpersonal relationships among these people. I have a strong personal opinion that what has motivated this persecution of me is power. There were familiarities among players that never should have happened. There's a sleeve of homicide in the Norfolk DA's office, as there is in the other counties of Massachusetts. And yet the person assigned to investigate this case, ostensibly investigate this case, lives a mile down the street from the crime scene. But I believe the players with the most influence are motivated more by power and playing God. And they're trying to play God with my life.
Not to protect people.
People are being protected. I don't know if the motivation was actually to protect those people, but it's a byproduct of it. I mean, there are names, and we know those names, that were hidden from me. I only knew who was in that house from the rumor mill, from people I knew in Canton, and it ended up becoming true once we pushed and filed motions and flew the team in. And 2 years later, a year and a half later, we're getting police reports of names of people that were in that house that I did not know about, or they were trying to make sure I didn't know about early in 2022.
And you can't have one without the other. You can't have a motivation to put the case on Karen Read without also being motivated to protect yourself or to protect others that are with you. It would take a real investigation, a true investigation by their own folks to reveal who is part of this. Is there one person that's behind it? I don't think so. In my personal opinion, I think it's a combination of folks. But I don't think that we're ever going to see that true investigation because the people that are in power don't want the truth.
But isn't that what the feds did?
That's ostensibly what the feds did and are continuing to do. I don't know the full contour of what the federal investigation is revealing, but I can certainly say that, to Karen's point, there were people that were never disclosed to us in any reports being in that home that weren't revealed until the federal investigators got involved and some folks started getting cornered. And they realized, oh, hang on, I can't suppress this anymore. There are reasons why I have to now reveal this truth. And then ultimately it was revealed. Why is that? Why were folks being hidden from us in police reports, et cetera, as being in the house, as being pertinent to this investigation? They didn't do anything. Who the hell cares?
Do we know who all those people are now?
Now
Were they
we
all
do.
part of the first
We
trial?
think we do.
Yeah, at least we think we do.
And by the way, Ted, I think it's probably half of the people that were in 34 Fairview, half of what we think the total number is, were interviewed for the first time with their defense attorneys, with their criminal defense attorneys. What a luxury. What a luxury. Some were interviewed in the first week of this case, the week following John's murder, in their attorneys' homes. Others were interviewed the fall of 2023 in their defense attorneys' offices. Convenient, and what a luxury.
And I've never seen that before either. We were talking earlier about things that are anomalous, an anomaly about this case. I've never seen that before, where like the entire panoply of eyewitnesses, supposedly eyewitnesses for the government, they'll lawyer up immediately. They're all interviewed with lawyers sitting there. Why? If you're just telling the truth, what do you need to lawyer up for?
Do you think it's just because of the exposure of this case, though?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think it's self-preservation.
Will you bring any new witnesses to the retrial? Will we see anyone new at the retrial from your side?
I think a lot of that depends on what we get from the Commonwealth. We're still waiting to get the full bucket of information that the Commonwealth is amassing for the second trial. But as soon as they let us know what their witness list looks like, then that will dictate in no small part what our witness list is going to look like. But I fully expect that there will be some
They're in the
new
bullpen.
witnesses. Yeah, we're not waiting on that. We're pretty good at figuring out that we can telegraph their punches. So we have not been sitting on our hands. I can put it that way. And will you see new faces? Yes, I expect you will.
We're 3 years removed from what happened, and you said that you're still receiving important evidence from the state. Why wouldn't have that been turned over for the first trial?
Because it's exculpatory.
That's the question we've been asking. Why wasn't this turned over during the first trial? And you probably will see that question posed in a formal motion that we will have before the court, before the trial starts. Because that's the right question to ask. Why the hell? You've been prosecuting this case for 3 years. We should have had every scrap of information available to you in our possession before the first trial. We have now learned that did not happen.
Karen, can you give me an example of something that you haven't?
Nope.
Well, the CPD video was just publicized. It's in a
Yeah,
public motion.
this isn't the place to talk about it. We're about to have a hearing on it. So I'd rather just
This isn't going to
defer
air
that.
though till after.
But she'll probably be not deciding.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. She might not decide it for weeks or months. So I'd rather defer that question.
You've asked the state's highest court to intervene and essentially dismiss the murder charge. How closely do you follow the decisions that come out every day from that court?
We pretty much take the pulse of that docket every day. We're very interested. We think that we have nothing but the deepest respect for the SJC. One of the beauties of the appellate court process is that the more elevated the courts go, the less associated they are with sort of the local issues that are attendant to a particular prosecution, a particular courtroom, a particular subject matter. So they're, by design, supposed to be elevated to a point where they can just look at something antiseptically, look at it legally and factually, and make a decision. We're looking very, very forward to the SJC reviewing, ultimately making a decision about, and then coming out with a holding concerning the acquittal of Karen on count 1 and count 3, the murder charge and the leaving the scene with injury charge. And when they do come out with that holding, my hope is that it's in our favor. It should be in our favor. We deeply believe legally that it will be in Karen's favor, and that will change the complexion of the second trial significantly.
Karen, aside from the DA's office dropping the charges against you, which is not going to happen, is the SJC decision your best hope?
If the SJC rules in our favor, that'd be a big win. But day to day, Ted, we don't plan on that. Hope for the best, expect the worst. One benefit to the SJC, to the appeal, to the affidavits submitted on behalf of the jurors that reached out to Alan and David, is it will hold a magnifying glass over the verdict, over the governing of the jurors, the logistics of it. So that's something we weren't expecting at the first trial. Things that were going on with the jury. We had issues with the verdict slip at the 11th hour. So this has helped us sort that out in advance of the second trial. So it has served a purpose, even if it's not the best outcome with the SJC.
So the jurors that came forward said that they found you not guilty on second-degree murder, but they were stuck on manslaughter. Why is that? Why do you think that there were people in that box that said, no, we believe Karen struck John?
Actually, I believe, and part of this is a little guesswork and filling in blanks, But the jurors that came forward indicated that they weren't actually even stuck on manslaughter. They were stuck on a subordinate charge beneath manslaughter, which means by definition, they were instructed you have to find not guilty on manslaughter to even go to a subordinate charge. So as it stands, as we sit here today, the information that we have is that she was acquitted on count 1, acquitted on count 3, acquitted on the upper charge of count 2, and they were stuck on something lesser like a DUI or DUI with injury or something like that.
But that would still mean that there were people in that box who thought Karen hit John.
I think that I don't think so, Ted. I don't believe that that's true. I believe that there were people, I think that we dispatched that notion in trial to the nth degree. I don't believe that there were actually jurors in the box who believed that the Commonwealth had proved beyond any and all reasonable doubt that she struck John with her car. I think what they thought was there is a tragic situation, a tragic outcome. A man lost his life, and that is tragic. It's deeply tragic for John, his family. And that there was drinking going on, drinking by Brian Albert, and drinking by Brian Higgins, drinking by Chris Albert, everybody, including Karen Reed. And she's the one on trial. Given the fact that there was drinking going on and someone lost their life, I think that there were certain people on the jury who just decided, I don't want to say not guilty across the board. Let's find something lesser to see if we can do something to close that loop for John O'Keefe. I don't think it had really, intellectually, anything to do with Karen Reed actually striking John O'Keefe.
Karen, would you like to see this case tried somewhere else? Moved out of Norfolk County, moved out of Massachusetts?
I'm not afraid of this case being tried in Norfolk County. I'm agnostic.
In terms of picking a jury for the next trial, I mean, it was a challenge the first time around. How the heck do you do it this time?
We're not looking for jurors that haven't heard about the case. That's going to be impossible. We're looking for jurors that haven't formed an opinion about the case, which is possible, and they may have, I know there are people in the jury pool that have maybe heard about the case tangentially or know my face or passed by it on the dial, but don't really know the evidence. I'm optimistic that those people exist, and they'll hear the evidence and they'll see the truth. But I believe people in Norfolk County, I've seen it, and I'm not from Norfolk County. I didn't live there. I wasn't raised there. But they're smart and savvy, and they're passionate. And when they do hear about the case, most of my supporters, I would guess, are from Norfolk County proportionately, and they're intelligent. They see this for what it is by following the evidence really closely. So I just need jurors that'll do that. I haven't done it yet, but will be willing to do that.
You've spoken at length about this case and the circumstances that have happened. Why not take the stand?
I am not saying that I am not taking the stand. I felt confident in our case, in our defense, because a lot of our case was our cross-examination of these witnesses. And we made a game time decision, and I take the advice of my attorneys, but I'm not afraid of taking the stand. And I'm clearly not afraid of speaking, but I will not assign any genuine, truthful intentions to the prosecution. And I've already seen signs they're playing hardball. So we'll weigh the pros and cons, and we'll make another second game time decision.
Do you think that this is personal for the DA's office, that they want a conviction more than probably any conviction they've ever gotten before?
Yes.
And there are certainly people involved with the prosecution who want exactly that. I would venture to say there's not a single person in the Commonwealth at the prosecution level. I don't think there's a single person at the investigative level with the law enforcement who actually believes in their heart that they can prove this case against Karen beyond any and all reasonable doubt. I don't think that there's a soul at the prosecution involved with the prosecution that believes that. Not a soul. I believe this is more a trial of a vendetta, of personal animus, of trying to save face. I don't think anybody there honestly, put him down, strap him to a lie detector. Do you think you can prove this case beyond any reasonable doubt that Karen Reed did this? Nope, I don't think so. So yeah, I think there's a lot of personal interest and personal animus that has gotten in the way of the prosecution and the Commonwealth doing their duty, their sworn duty, not to prosecute someone unless they believe they can do so to a jury, an objective jury of her peers, beyond a reasonable doubt. I don't think any one of them think that.
Karen, is it your understanding that nobody in the Norfolk DA's office would try this case, and that's why they went to Hank Brennan?
We've heard rumors to that effect, and it was from some of the same people that told us Hank Brennan was being recruited within weeks of the mistrial. So I lend some credence to those rumors, but they're just rumors. And also, no one in the DA's office is trying this case for the retrial.
This case has become your identity. Is that for the rest of your life, or will one day you just want to put it all behind you?
I don't think I can, even if I wanted to, and I'm okay with that. It's more important, this fight, than anything I've done by a wide margin. And it's made me realize that this happens all the time. And I'm just fortunate enough to be able to fight back. But what's happened to me has happened too easily, too swiftly, with seemingly no checks and balances other than the ones we can bring, that this can't be the first, it can't be the first time. And it's 2025 in Massachusetts, and it's happening right before everyone's eyes. It's hiding in plain sight. So this is a problem that I hope I'm here to address. And even if I'm not, it will be addressed. We're doing it right now. Regardless of the outcome, which will be an acquittal, eyes have been opened. That's why Alan and I are sitting here, is there's interest, and people are evaluating their law enforcement and their elected officials and their district attorneys with a more critical eye than they were before. And that's a bigger impact and a purpose that I could have, even if it's been very, very difficult for me and the people that are closest to me.
Something that the prosecution has recently been focused on were calls you made to your mother overnight. What were those calls about?
Anyone who spent any time with me throughout my life knows I'm incredibly close to my parents. And I was very troubled, to put it, you've heard the voicemails. It was a blizzard. There were young children unattended. And John, uncharacteristically, and when I say uncharacteristically, I mean he's never done that before at that hour in those conditions. And I was panicked. I was torn between, did something go wrong, or is he purposely ignoring me and taking advantage of me to go home to the kids while he stay out drinking? And as I do, and do I wish I did it less? Yes, but now I need her more than ever. As I normally would do, I'd reach out to my mother for, what do you think's happening? And I, reach out to them every day now that that night just, it's like I never woke up from it. So
I think the fact that the prosecution seems to be focusing on those calls and trying to wrap Karen's parents into this just shows a level of desperation that shows or suggests that the prosecution understands how thin, paper thin, chiffon thin their case is. They can't prove this case, and so they're just sort of desperately looking to scattershot other information to make innuendo about why would she call her mother. Like, she calls her parents all the time. There's no there. Doesn't mean that the prosecution isn't going to look and make suggestions about it, but it's a desperate ploy, and there's nothing there.
What would surprise me or the people watching this about something that's transpired over the last 3 years?
I don't think so. I think one of the things that we've tried to do on the defense team from the beginning is pull that veil back, pull the curtain back, and show all the warts and blemishes of the Massachusetts State Police, the Canton Police Department, the investigative techniques that they used or didn't use, the Commonwealth's prosecution of a case like this. We wanted everybody to see everything. And we were pretty successful in that in terms of the presentation in front of the first jury. We intend to do it again in front of the second jury. So the thing that's most shocking is the full universe of information that now the community has in front of it. We have gotten call after call after call, email after email, text after text from community members who don't know us, certainly don't know me, I'm from California, saying, this kind of thing happened to my family, this kind of thing happened to me, this kind of thing happened to my son, this kind of thing happened to my father, my mother. And nobody would ever look at it. Nobody would believe us. Nobody would listen. Thank God you folks have found the platform to show what actually is happening in our community. That's what has been most surprising, and it's there for everybody to see.
What is your relationship with Adam Lally and Hank Brennan? Is it cordial?
There's no relationship.
I mean, you have to deal with them back and forth.
Not her.
Not me.
Okay. Your relationship with Hank Brennan?
Completely professional.
Okay.
Cordial, civil, professional. And that's all I expect. If he's going to prosecute this case, the only thing I expect from him is professionalism, which he has given me. It doesn't get, at least with me and with David and with Liza, it doesn't get personal. We deal with what we need to deal with in the courtroom.
Was that the same way with Adam Lally?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, by and large. By and large. I disagree vehemently, vigorously with their prosecution of this case. Yeah. They know that. I haven't made that, that is out there. But in terms of just day-to-day interaction, I expect the highest level of professionalism from them, and they get it from us.
It's business.
It's business.
State police have had people follow your drivers?
Yep. Our drivers have been approached by the state police. They're no longer some are no longer my drivers because of that. I've had very close friends, had their cell phone records subpoenaed for an indictment that never happened. There's a lot of attempts to glean more about our team by the state police. There's probably, I wouldn't put it past them to something's going on as I'm sitting here.
Have you ever been followed?
I don't know. My eyes are akimbo all the time. I look at law enforcement differently, more warily. I don't know that I'm being followed. I've been tracked. I mean, I've been tracked on flights. I've been tracked when I've stayed in hotels. This is in.
How do you know you're being tracked?
I know from affidavits from the state police at the Norfolk DA's office when they were investigating me last year. I was with my closest friend trying to get away from Massachusetts, and little did I know at the time, I learned about it afterwards, that they knew what flight I was on, they knew when I landed, they knew when I came back, and it's disturbing. It's invasive, and it's desperate.
Getting back to sort of just distilling, what is the one thing in this case that you believe proves your innocence?
John's body, no bruise, 6,000-pound, full-size SUV, not a bruise on his body, not a fracture below his head.
The medical examiner did not rule his death a homicide, correct?
Correct.
Was it undetermined?
Yes.
And that doesn't get revisited, correct?
Oh, good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck trying to revisit that. I don't think it'll be revisited by her. I mean, she came to the decision she came to the decision of. Right. So I don't think she's not gonna, and if she does deviate from that decision, she's gonna have to answer for that. And that will be an incredibly uncomfortable situation. I don't think that will happen. But it's very telling that their own best expert as it pertains to the physical evidence surrounding John and John's injuries did not rule this a homicide. and they have the burden of proof. That's one of the galling factors in this entire thing is the Commonwealth knows that their own expert or experts will not support their prosecution of Karen. Then dismiss the case. Do the right thing. Just do the right thing. And it's shocking that they won't.
John's niece and nephew, who he was taking care of, essentially testified against you in the trial. How hard was that?
I knew that was coming because I read what they testified to in the initial indictment almost 3 years ago. And they're part of a well that was poisoned almost as soon as he died. And they were 3 years younger then and impressionable and surrounded by adults that care for them and provide for them. And I was no longer one of those adults. And it's unfortunate, and I hope and wish for the best for them, but I've long come to terms with what's happened to the children.
Has Paul O'Keefe ever made any statements to you walking by or anything?
He sends me, he hasn't in a while, but he's attempted to send me Facebook messages. It's ironic because there's a stay away order, and yet I hear, they've attempted to send me messages, and as soon as I see the name comes up, I just delete it. I'm not interested in anything he has to say to me.
What do you think might be the tenor of those messages?
Negative, volatile. I mean, there was some volatility in court, and I think I'd attribute the same cause to Paul's emotions as I would to the children's.
Can you feel him staring at you?
I honestly don't even know he's there anymore. I mean, I'm aware that his immediate family's in the courtroom, but there's days that, we come home from hearings or we came home from court, and someone close to me will say, "Was that so-and-so on the O'Keefe side?" And I said, I honestly, I almost look through them at this point. I know they're there, and my family would be there. My family is there. But the O'Keefe's presence, Paul sitting there, doesn't impact me, it doesn't bother me. That's John's brother. But I couldn't tell you from one day to the next what color shirt he was wearing.
If you were framed, who's calling the shots? There's so many levels there, right? There's the troopers on the ground, there's the prosecutors, there's the DA.
That's the problem. This is just us talking, but that's the problem with answering that question or trying to narrow that question. And she can answer it whichever way she wants to, but it can't be one. It's not one person. It's just not. There's not a singular tip of the spear.
Do you want to say? Do you want to? I mean, if that's the
it's my opinion.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I want to hear you. Obviously,
I just want to add to that. I already answered it very pointedly, but there's a garbage in, garbage out problem that forensic scientists or civilians or even local law enforcement that's assisting the investigators, their output and their determinations are only as good as what they're given, what they're testing, what they're measuring, what they're photographing. So I don't believe it's necessarily 40 different people, but I think it's garbage in, garbage out.
5, 10 years from now, where is Karen Read? What is she doing?
I don't know what I'll be doing, but I'll be busy whatever I'm doing. And I care and I think more about whom will I be with. And God willing, it's my parents and the people who've seen me through this. And I hope to meet more of the people that are helping to pull our team through.
Do you have the capacity to find someone new one day, or has that all just been destroyed by all of this?
No, it's not destroyed. I didn't do anything wrong. And I cared for someone and he cared for me. And it ended tragically. And tragic things happen to relationships every day, to 67 relationships, are exponential this morning or last night. So I will not be permanently broken. I'm not broken temporarily. I've just been sidelined from what I thought I was doing on this planet, and it wasn't what I thought I was supposed to be doing. But there's been no irreparable damage to me or what I want out of life or what I want to make me happy.
Did you always know that you had this strength?
I could not have known that I could deal with what I'm dealing with, but I've never been deterred by anything in my life. And I have had challenges, not quite as big as this, but health challenges that severely incapacitated me and ruined my physical quality of life. This is more of a mental obstacle now, but I'm invigorated by challenges. It makes me feel stronger to overcome things. And I think part of the reason I can adapt to this new normal I'm in is because I've had to do it before. And I've been strengthened by the events of my life that brought me to 2022.
The hundreds of thousands of people who might be watching this, what would you like to say to them?
Thank you to the vast majority of them. And like I've said earlier, only people very close to me knew the truth for a very long time, living day to day without a job, without anything to really focus on but this case, and know that even my neighbors who I could see out my window didn't really know the circumstances. And to have hundreds of thousands hear this and be enlightened is just a massive relief. And the support that people come up to me, to my family. Alan and I had a meal paid for in the North End, and it was, I don't know the last time I've done anything but tip a waiter. And that generosity, that's all helping fuel this. It helps me spiritually, and it helps me financially, and I want to thank the vast majority of those people.